I'll just send it to him.
So quiet. How are you guys today? You guys training after this?
You're taking up for a session?
Warm-ups and cool-downs. Most important stuff for training. Anyways, anyone knows what distance I run to start off with? 800. Anyone here run the 800s? What time do you run? Don't know. Anyone know the time?
2:47.
2:47.
2:42.
2:42.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Any of the boys?
Yeah, do you feel good? We all run.
Come on, Declan, speak.
Does anyone run about 2:05? 2:10?
Yeah,
What time do you run?
2:11.
2:11. And how old are you?
14.
14. So guys, my name is Peter. I've actually used to train here. I started running when I was about 16, when I was just about to turn 17 with Ben's dad, actually Bertie. So this place is my home and I've always trained here. At the moment I actually live in Melbourne. I'm in Essendon. So I'm just here to visit my family, which they live about 6 minutes from here, so it's pretty close. So the reason I asked your age was because I actually didn't start running until I was 17. And my first run, I think was, and if I'm not wrong, I think Ben still has it on YouTube, my first 800. I think I ran in lane 2 most of the time. Because the 800 you start in lanes and I thought you had to stay in your lane the whole time. And I actually ran 2:05 on that first run. And fast forward 5 years later, I ended up running 1:45 to qualify for the Olympics in Rio. So the process of running that fast, I think there's a few things I have to share with you guys. Number one is you gotta actually really enjoy it. Whatever you find, you enjoy it. Whether it's training, whether it's being with your friends. If you don't enjoy it, it's really hard to keep going and keep pushing. One of the best things I had was my family was always very supportive, and they never had to push me to come to training. I've always wanted to come to training. And sometimes when I didn't, I took a rest day and stuff like that, but I've always made the commitment to actually start training myself and work up to training. Because I think 80% of it is actually just rocking up to training, doing the proper warm-up, doing the proper cool-down, and doing the proper sessions, and you'll actually get there. Because believe it or not, in 5 years, I had no idea what sports psychology was, I had no idea what nutrition was in sports. I just had fun and I trained and I enjoyed the sports, and that's how I made it to the Olympics. But that doesn't have to be your story. There's different ways to get to where you want to be. And I think number 2 is you have to actually balance it. Does anyone do anything else outside athletics? Any other sports?
Swimming.
Swimming, do you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Football, which type of football? Soccer or AFL?
AFL and soccer.
AFL and soccer?
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics?
Ballet and singing.
Nice. Yeah.
Rugby.
Rugby league and you?
Netball.
Netball. So again, the reason I asked that question as well, the only reason I started running was because the teacher convinced me I was playing basketball, I went to St. Norbert's College and I was on scholarship for basketball. And the only reason I started running because I believed that athletics was the foundation to every sport. Because every sport you need the basic fitness, you need the speed. If you're faster and if you're fitter, you have to stay longer in your game. For rugby, you need to be fast and fit and strong. And athletics provided that. Everything else you need that. So you got to work out the foundation. So when I first moved to Australia, I was actually only, I think, 10 years old, and I couldn't speak a word of English. And I couldn't attend any classes other than math because those numbers, you can understand math. So I had to do tutoring for English because at school, English was like the foundation for everything else. If you learn English, you can then be able to go to other classes like SME, science and stuff like that. So in sports, I think athletics is really important. You gotta make sure you get your fitness up, you gotta make sure you get your endurance up and do all the little things as well. I played basketball until I was 17. After I graduated school, I played for another year. I played for Kalamunda Eastern Suns, so it was a Waffle State team, and I just fell in love with athletics because of the opportunities it provides you. So I came from a family where we didn't do a lot of trips. So the first trip that I went to was Sydney at Nationals, and I remember that as well. That was another embarrassing moment because I actually got disqualified in the final. I was so nervous at the line. I was shaking before the gun went, and I actually crossed into the line before you're supposed to in the 100 meters. So I made the final, and I didn't even get a time because you get disqualified. It just says disqualified. So I finished 8th in my first year of athletics in the country for my age group, and I was so disappointed because for me, I thought I should be the best. I grew up with 5 brothers. It wasn't arrogance. I just grew up with so many brothers, and we're so competitive. It was like if you didn't come first, then your brothers were better than you. So I took that same thing. I was always so competitive. And the issue with being competitive is you end up being disappointed. And the best thing you gotta learn is to be resilient. If you want to be competitive, it's fine. It's actually really important to be competitive to be at the top. But with being so competitive, there's also so much disappointments that come with it. And sports full of disappointments too. So when you lose, or if you lose or you get an injury, make sure you're resilient. Does anyone know what resilience means? Anyone? Okay, resilience in easy term is just your ability to bounce back. So if you hit a hurdle, how long will it take you to get back? So in 2011, I think, when I went to nationals and came last, it took me about a year to be able to bounce back. I decided in 2012 not to go to nationals that year because I used the excuse that I didn't study for school and not go because I was so disappointed coming in. I said I did not want to go through all that pain again. And little did I know that was just. What's up, boys?
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. So yeah, you gotta actually be really resilient, be able to bounce back. Do we have any national title winners here?
Yes, I have.
Nice. Any state level championships, titles? You got plenty. School champions? Yeah. So everyone, and you're not, it's really hard to continue winning the whole time. So you gotta be able to make sure when you don't. One thing that worked really well for me is writing things down. And that's the process of just goal setting. Anyone set goals here? Yeah, perfect. I think if you don't have a goal, it's really hard. Sometimes it's really hard to stay motivated, and sometimes it's hard to keep pushing. So the first goal I set myself was to win cross country at school because I kept coming second at ACC level, and I did not like coming second. And I asked my teacher, why does this kid keep beating me? And I wasn't running at the time. We had to do cross country because it was compulsory, and she said, look, he does something called training. And before that, I didn't know I didn't know athletics was even a sport. I came from a family where just football was the sport, soccer, basketball, and stuff like that. So when you set goals, you make sure you have to actually back them up. You can't set a goal to win a national title and then your lifestyle doesn't suit it. So I can't go set a goal to be an Olympian and train once a week. It just doesn't work. I can't set a goal to be a national champion and not go back to training and do something else. There's sacrifices that have to come with it, which is one is your time. Your time here tonight is really important. So if you, So yeah, I think your coaches, Ben and stuff, will help you guys set goals. And it's basically based on what times you're running and what you want to achieve. So if you're going to take anything from here tonight, especially if you're next year, set yourself 3 goals. One sport, one outside the sport, and one at school. Because it's really important to have 3 balances. You gotta know what you want to do on track next year. Is it time-wise? Is it making a championship? Is it just staying healthy and being fit? Whatever it is, set yourself a goal, write it down, give it a deadline. So by giving a deadline, meaning, have you guys heard of the SMART principle? Yeah.
Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time.
Yeah, absolutely. So look that up when you're setting goals because it actually helps. If you just set a goal to run, so I set a goal to run 145.4 when I was 17 and I was only running 205. And I didn't actually set a timeline for it. I just set the goal, and I had it every time I woke up. I could see it, and believe it or not, 4 years later, that's the exact time I ran to qualify for the Olympics. It's just being able. You can set a goal and write it down and never look at it, and you will forget. But this goal, I was actually looking at it consciously every morning I wake up. So make sure you post it up somewhere in your room or wherever you look, because if you can't see it, then I guarantee you within a week or two, you'll forget about it. And make sure you share it with your friends and whatnot as well. 8. Okay, number 3 is actually making teams has actually been my favorite thing out of the whole sports and the opportunities that came with it. So number 1, being in 2015, I actually went overseas for the first year. I went to university. I was studying at Curtin University, and I made World University Games for 800. I actually decided not to go to World University Games and decided just to go to Europe and compete. And that was the first year that I left Australia since I got in. And that was awesome because 1, it was fun about Athletics Australia. 2, I got to go visit, family overseas and stuff like that, and as well as get to compete as well. And now I've visited, I think, almost every continent other than Antarctica, and over so many countries. Recently, I was just in Germany. I raced in Doha. I raced in Monaco. I raced in Sweden twice this year. Poland, Germany. So just this year alone, I've been overseas for 3 to 4 months just running. And my sister always asks, so how long do you run when you go there? And literally, competition 800 meters, my slowest time this season was 1:46. So if you combine all my races together, I was only total under 20 minutes on the track, and I was overseas for 4 months. And then the question is, okay, what do you do outside of that? And that's the next thing. You gotta make sure you have other things in place as well. Not just sport, you gotta have something surrounding it too. You gotta have a strong foundation in a way. 1, I love my family. It's a strong value for me, so I always keep that intact. So if sport goes bad, you have people to go to. Your support network is really important. It's really challenging sometimes to get up to the highest level without having people with you and the right people. And you gotta make that decision. As you keep growing and go to school, you're gonna have friends going to different sports, different hobbies and whatnot. Don't feel left out. You guys can still be friends, and you can follow your own path at the same time and just meet together when you have your time off. I have so many of my friends do basketball, so many of my friends do football, do other sports, and we're still great friends right now. So it doesn't mean you have to follow them just because to be close to them and not enjoy it. If you enjoy it, then yeah, you can do that. But if you don't, keep doing your own path. Actually, I actually like us getting you guys to ask some questions before we go on to the next part. Does anyone have any questions? It could be about training, it could be about outside of training, the teams I've made, something that would be better for you guys, what I do for training, how long I train, and what I do outside of training.
How old were you when you learned 800 was your price?
I was probably, the first time I ran, I actually thought, nah, 800 wasn't it. Because the lactic you get in the last 100 meters, I was like, that's not it. But as you get fitter, I was like, yeah, I think 800 is the perfect distance for me. I came winning cross country, but I enjoyed the 800 because it was simple. It was 2 laps, it was strength based, I could work on speed, endurance as well. So about when I was 20, when I won, or 19, I won my first national championship, which was in Perth here. And I became the fastest person in Australia in my age group, and I was like, whoa, I want to be now the fastest in the whole country. Yeah. So I made Rio, that was my first team, which was scary, right? Imagine going straight from here to high school. So I didn't make any World Juniors, no Commonwealth Games, no small teams. I went straight to the Olympics. There was not a team that I ever did before that.
How much times do you train a week?
So I train from Monday all the way through to Sunday, but it's broken down. Monday speed, Tuesday is 800 work. Wednesday I just do an easy jog in gym. Gym is very important. Thursday I do hills for strength during the season, off season, and during the season I do track work. Friday is usually a day off in gym. Saturday I do longer distance work, and then Sunday is generally a day off, recovery, or in recovery can be a massage, get a treatment, something like that.
What do you do when you're not running, like when you're off?
So I've done a few different things, different times. So I studied construction management and economics at school. So I worked as a junior engineer for about a year, getting experience working on different projects, which was quite fun. I do a lot of speaking and a lot of coaching back in Melbourne where I am, and I love studying. So I was learning my first year in Melbourne. I was just learning languages, and I picked up a new language, which was Spanish, which was cool.
How did you deal with COVID?
COVID. I actually had a good year during COVID because Melbourne, as you know, Melbourne had the longest lockdown in the whole world. I think Melbourne had the craziest lockdown. But with COVID, that was tough because I was in the best shape. I had really big goals, and they were all working out. You know, I was undefeated. I won every race in Australia, running the fastest time I've ever ran. You know, and my next race, where I was planning to break the Australian record, COVID hit, got postponed. Olympic trials got postponed, and then the Olympics got postponed. So with that, number one, I took some time off just because you gotta actually know what's happening and stuff like that. And I wasn't training for anything specific. Took some time off, came straight home, see my family. Number two, changed my goals. It wasn't the Olympics anymore. Let's just train because we enjoy it. That's what I enjoy doing. Let's just train and hopefully try to get to Europe. Number three, we actually got to go to Europe, and I competed over 8 times. It was no Olympics, which was tough. But I've had a good year being out. It's just things didn't work out. But the way I worked it out, it was I didn't miss the Olympics because I couldn't make it, but it was because the world was on hold. So that was kind of less disappointing.
Does your training change like leading up to competitions, or does it stay the same?
No, it changes. So it changes about 30% less because you try to be fresh during competition. So you try to eat, you eat well, you do all the 1% as well because you're not training as much. You don't wanna load too much. So the training will be a lot of track work, a lot of freshening up, and during off season is the toughest because that's where all the hard training, that's where you're built. The hard training, the gym, everything. So I said I just train about 7 times a week. During competition, I taper, so I'll be doing 5 times to 4 times a week, and they're a lot easier. Just like 1 or 2 hard sessions a week, and there's specific training for the 800. So it'll be like, if you guys understand. So leading up, I do like sessions like 4 times 300s at 35 seconds. Or one of the sessions that I did before that was I did 3 times 400s, and that was at 49 seconds, 50 of 8 minutes. Specific training was 6 by 200s at 25s, 24s, something like that. Just to feel fast, feel fresh. Nothing too long, like 6 by K. You know, a Saturday session is usually 6 by K or 4 by mile. A Saturday session changes to 6 by 2 minutes. So you're just feeling fresh.
Have we got any goals?
If I learned anything this year is how uncertain the next year is, and if I learned anything was that to focus on the present moment. So my goal remains going to the Olympics and doing well over there, but the focus is more than ever is to focus on now and to continue doing the things you're doing, regardless of looking too much into the future. Just keep doing that. My goals are still there, but I'm focusing day by day, and just building.
How many kilometers do you run a week, like normally?
It's a good question. So I wouldn't go over 60 kilometers a week. That's like about max. Usually about 50 when I'm in Europe getting ready for competition, 38. But when it's 38, it's a lot faster weeks. Like when you go 60 kilometers a week to 70 kilometers a week, it's a lot of easy running, easy jogging. Because you can get a lot of kilometers just by increasing warm up. Usually 10 minutes, increase it to 15 minutes. That's already 3K warm up, 3K cool down, and that's already 6K before even doing a session. So about 60, yeah, I hit about 60 kilometers last week. Anyone else?
Do you ever train alone, or do you always have people with you, like training partners?
So the way that works, I train a lot myself alone, but I'm technically not alone because I have a coach. And athletics is one of those things that you can train alone, but for so long it gets really hard. And you guys see me come and train here a lot of times at Langford because it actually helps just having people around. Even though we're not training together, it helps just having the environment around you. And I try my best to come over here. My training partner is Joseph. I've holds Australian record, and we kind of travel together everywhere and train together, which is here in Perth at the moment. So it just helps to have someone with you. Even when I'm here, sometimes I message random people they want to come train and do sessions, and it just helps. My friends who don't even run, it just helps having them around.
What's your next goal for like time-wise for 800?
This season I wanted to run 143, so it obviously didn't happen because of the whole COVID period. I ran 144, which I was happy with. So the first goal is to qualify for the Olympics because my 144 didn't actually count because they disqualified the Olympic qualification period, so I just have to run that again next season. So I think first things first, get the time out, the Olympic standard, which is 145.2. My personal best is 144.56. So yeah, and then try around 143 low, which is top 3 Olympic position next year if you can run that. But with that, you gotta run rounds. You gotta run OIC. You gotta run 145 in the heat, 144 in the semis, and then in the finals, literally, you could win it in 145 depending the tactics, or it could be a 142 race. But if you are in 143 shape, you will be able to finish top 3, if not top 4. And then just the other part, I think you guys, it would be worth it exploring a bit, a lot of mental techniques, a lot of mental training, which is, we spoke about goal setting and whatnot. So when I actually went to the Olympic setting, I was at the Olympic camp. I had this sports psychologist come up to me. I had no idea what a sports psychologist was, and he comes up to me and says, "Pete, we need to speak." And I remember going to my coach and said, "What does he want to speak to me about?" I don't know what a sports psychologist does. And I was like, "I don't want to speak to him." And then my coach just goes, "It's worth it, just go speak to him." And I went to speak to him, and we sat down, and he was talking to me, and he goes, "Pete, picture this bubble." And in my head, I'm like, we're 2 weeks away from the Olympics, and he wants to talk about bubbles. But he said, "Picture this bubble," right? And he held his hand like that, and he said, "This bubble contains your energy, and you want to be in the middle. You don't want to be too outside or too inside. Too inside being you're so nervous with everything around you, and you're just staying in your room. And we get nervous, it's normal, but sometimes it does impact you. So, and too outside meaning you just get overwhelmed, which was cool because I went to the Olympics the first day. Any basketball fans here? NBA fans? What team you support? Oklahoma. Golden State as well.
Warriors.
Oh, you guys. Disappointing. Celtics. Yeah, so the first day I was at the Olympic Village, I put my bag down and I went, and I'm still a massive basketball fan. I didn't even know who I was running against in athletics wise. I go down, and the first person I meet was Patty Mills. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, welcome to the team. My name is Patty Mills." I'm like, "You don't need to tell me who you are. I know exactly who you are." And that's how he just started getting so excited seeing people around. I saw Clay Thompson, for all those Oklahoma fans. I was playing table tennis with Clay Thompson at the Olympic Village. I went to lunch and I could hear a loud crowd, and the people next to me, Usain Bolt and his crew, were all laughing and enjoying themselves. And it's just an Olympic Village. You see all the NBA players, you see everyone. And one of the most exciting things was, I don't usually get too excited about food, but when food is free, it's quite exciting. Nothing at the Olympic Village costs money. Vending machines don't cost money. You go get a haircut, it doesn't cost money. Food courts open 24/7. You can get beads, you can get phones. I think we got a free Samsung at the time. And then I remember sitting there, I was like, you made it, you worked for 5 years to get to the Olympics, and you're getting excited about free food and seeing all these people. You gotta make sure you contain that energy until you finish what you went there to do, which is your race, and then you can go do whatever you want. But the most important task is first is to actually do that, to do your race. It's so easy just to be everywhere. It's so evolving the whole Olympic Village. And then the last thing I share with you guys is to be yourselves. And I realized that when I went to the warm track at the Olympic Village, and I was watching, because I was so new, I was watching everyone. I was watching the Jamaicans, and the Jamaicans had like the funnest team. Usain Bolt was there, they had music pumping, and they were just laughing, smiling. And I was like, man, I want to be like them. And I looked at the Kenyans, they just looked so shy and nervous. So the Jamaicans look like they already won the Olympics before it started. The Kenyans look like they lost the Olympics. And then I looked at the Australians, they were just being themselves, and the Americans were tense. And I was like, okay, who do I want to be like? And I said, I want to be like the Jamaicans because they look like they have nothing to worry about. But at the end of the championship, the Kenyans dominated the distance running. The Jamaicans dominated the sprints. The Americans dominated some of the sprints. Australia won the rugby. And I was like, okay, so that's just their personalities. They're just being who they are. There's no point for you to go to championship and because I've run 145 and you haven't ran that and start copying my warm-up. You don't need to copy my warm-up. Whatever's been working for you, it works for you. You can get there different ways. There's no point to go try to be someone else. You get to a top level just by being yourself and following what you're doing. There's no need to copy your friends' warm-up to do all stuff like that. Especially at championships, when you've been doing something similar, you don't need to go change it with someone else. And that was the biggest one, was just to be yourself. Any final questions before warm-up? So I think the most important thing, and Bernie did really well with me, was we actually worked a lot on. Although I used to complain a bit and then rebellious about doing. Do you guys know butt crampers and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. Oh man, that stuff used to hurt. But that's the best thing Bernie did was develop that for me. I was doing the proper warm-up, the proper cool-down, and the session was just half of the thing. If I did the proper warm-up, the proper cool-down, and all my career, I've only been injured. I've only been injured once, and that was when I went to Melbourne and I stopped following the program. Because if you're not strong enough to sustain the training you're doing, sometimes you get injured. Sometimes it just happens as well, and it's part of being resilient to bounce back. Injury is part of sport. I don't know any athlete that hasn't been injured before, so just make sure you really do hydrate, do all the small things. The easiest things is usually the things that we don't want to do. We usually love to train really hard, but then we don't want to cool down. We don't want to warm up properly. If you don't warm up properly, you risk an injury. If you don't cool down properly, you risk cramps and losing another day. So just do those small things. And then once you're off track, it's really important to stay focused. If you had a busy day or something like that, you communicate that with your coaches. Sometimes when I used to work at the engineering firm and I had a long day, I'd speak to my coach and we change the session so the intensity is a bit lower. If I go and do a hard intensity session, my body's not feeling it, I risk injury. But number one key is communicate. Your coaches are there to help you at the end of the day. Your coaches, your parents, whoever your support team is, you have to communicate with them. And that's it. Yeah, so if you have any other questions, if you wanted to ask any questions in person, you can ask me outside. But so as I said, you guys do your own warm-up. I'll give you guys advice out there, but it's important just to do your warm-up properly. And then whatever session you have today, I'll stay around and watch for a bit as well. And I'll see you guys probably next year. So I'm heading back to Melbourne on the 5th of Jan. I'll start racing on the 26th at 1500, and I've got 2 800s, maybe a 400. And then it's Olympic trials, and then I'll be overseas again from May up until probably November, which is a long time to be away for, but I'm kind of excited for next year.